Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to part 4 and the final part of this ZX Spectrum tribute fictional promotion tutorial series. That's quite a mouthful, isn't it? A little bit too long. So in the previous episode we finalized the render. We set up the scene, placed our elements like the icons and made the base, and rendered out an image which will drop into Photoshop as we did there. And we'll bring that in to scale it up a little bit to fit our canvas. And we'll place that into our design group. Just place it where you like, really, but you want it obviously on the right hand side and in a good composition. Good place. Now we've got the vignette, so I want to drag that above our design. I feel like the left side of the render is a little bit too bright there, with the controller on the floor just to the left of the base. So by using the vignette, we can just darken that down a little bit and make it a little bit nicer for the for the content to sit there. So here I'm going into the gradient itself, the vignette, which is just a vector ellipse with a fill of 0 and a gradient applied to it. And I'm crunching the markers there so I can see exactly where the cutoff point for the alpha is really. I think that's good. If you remember, we also rendered the emission pass in Blender, so we'll drop that in as well. Now at this point I realized I made a mistake actually. I'd knocked down the fill to 23%, just a random number, so I could see where to place it, but then I didn't put it back to 100%. So when I put it to screen, it's there, but it's obviously not as strong as it should be. But that's not a big problem. So let's add some Gaussian blur to that. 20 pixels should be quite nice. If you click and drag or just click within that box, it will switch back to its before the blur is effectively applied, and you can see how it looks. So I'm duplicating that layer, obviously because the strength was way down where it should have been. But again, that's fine. And we've got a nice soft glow going on there now. Let's also drop in this flare. And scale it down and find a good place to put this. Let's change that to screen. And now I'm just looking for a position where that just works. I feel as though it works well. And I think about there is good. Obviously you can play around with the scaling of the flare. You could fade it out if you needed to. There we go, scale it down a little bit. You don't want it too strong. And here are some light leak and bokeh images that I found online. They're free. So I'm going to use this one to bring a little bit more, I guess, I don't know, visual effects to the composition. So I'm imagining this in the bottom right hand corner, of course. So let's try some various blending techniques here and see which one works better. Probably screen or lighten. So with that set to screen, let's make it a little bit larger and just move it around. At this point, I'm looking for a position that works with what I already have there. Now feel free to play around with the scale, even the rotation a little bit if you need to. The only issue with this image is where the flare isn't in the bottom right, it's actually not black. So when it's set to screen mode, you still get some lightening happening elsewhere in the image, in fact all over it pretty much. So we need to add a mask, a layer mask, and we'll paint out first the edges, because we can see there's a hard edge there. Because it's not black, it's gonna be obvious there's a hard edge. So look out for these things. I sometimes see designs where the designer's added an effect like this and didn't notice or didn't check the boundary of the overlay, and it just creates a nasty clip edge, hard edge in the design, which doesn't look great. So keep an eye out for things like that. So as I'm dabbing away there on the canvas, I'm keeping my eye on the layer mask, and it helps me just understand better if I've missed anything or it's not an even distribution of light to darks. So with that, I'm gonna switch to white and just brush in a little bit more on the lighter area, just to make sure I haven't toned it down too much. And I've turned the opacity of the brush down to 10%. That way I can just click away. As you see there, very subtle. It just helps to smooth out the effect. You can toggle the light on and off to see how, if you missed anything, you can spot things like that normally. So we're going to select these layers. So we've got the design and the emission overlay. We're going to scale it up, excuse me, scale it up a little bit and just move it up a touch. Let's make more use of that space that we've got available. It also helps to move away the little ghost character there on the left, away from the content a little bit more. Make sure you save your work. Let's drop in another overlay and see if that adds anything to the image. So I'm imagining this to be around the bottom right hand corner again, to work with that flare that we had just added. So set that to screen mode and place it where you think it works well. So you've got these kind of light particles basically. So I'm really taking my time here because I'm looking for any bright spots that I don't want to be visible or are too eye-catching. You don't want to be distracted by things like this. You want this to help the overall composition but not be distracting to the main subject. So with that done, I'm going to add a bit of blur to this, and I switched to shape blur, but the options there are literally just these shapes that you have in the default Photoshop. So that's not what I'm looking for. I would normally just throw in a Gaussian blur here, but I thought let's try the iris blur and give it a less uniform blur, right? So with the iris blur, you get this ellipse shape in the center of your canvas, which you can resize and drag around. So I click in the center, drag it around. You can see there in the center of that ellipse is effectively there's no blur, and as it goes out towards the edge of that shape, it introduces more blur. So you should almost think of it almost like a tilt shift or depth of field blur. And you can click that ring there just in the center, and and you can change the strength of the blur, which is a really nice feature. So here I'm just placing to see, you know, if I put it here, what does it look like? If I put it there, what happens if I put it there? Just trying to get the look that I want. So it kind of makes sense that the particles would be, you know, less blurred in the center and then blurry as they go outside towards the edge of that ellipse. Something like that. So where that bright spot is, you have a lot sharper particles, and as it fades away, they get softer. Just playing around with the bokeh color there. Not really sure if that really helps or does anything substantial. So we just set that to high quality and click OK. I think that looks good. And let's save that again. Just toggle that on and off to see how that works. It's funny how I didn't spot the 23% on that emission layer. Let's save that, but we're happy with that. And we're practically there now. Well, just all we've got to do is tweak the color of the text. The heading there, the title, doesn't really sit well with the, it's okay, but I think the yellow, there we go. I think that looks a lot nicer. And just rename that group to something else a bit more appropriate. And there you have it. Very short video, very quick. I mean, we did all the work in Blender, so we didn't really need to add much to this to get it to where we want it to be. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and join me for more. Like and subscribe, because there's some awesome content coming up. See you next time. Bye for now.